believe me, I was sad and I grieved. It's a huge life change. You know, 'cause
Mhm.
you think like you raise your kids so it's 18 years, but if you have multiple kids, we're talking 25 or
Yeah.
26
Yeah.
or more. Your heart is still with that really sacred task of mothering, and as it should be. And your kids are always right there in the forefront of your mind. However, you were a woman before you were a mother.
Mhm.
And you have lots to offer the world, and you need
Yeah.
to find your purpose.
Hi, everybody. It's Mary. Welcome to Homebody. We're here today with Suzy Mighell with EmptyNestBlessed.com. Welcome, Suzy.
Hi, Mary. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a great day to have you here, and let's get going. Well, it's so nice to talk to you, Suzy, and I'm going to kind of jump into some of our firepower here, but I just would love for now you to tell me about yourself and how you got started with your Empty Nest Blessed.
Well, I turned 50 on the exact day that I dropped my last child off for college, which is just a cruel joke. I mean, it really, I was like, well, happy birthday to me. We're sweating it out in Oklahoma. But about the same time, I started noticing that friends were really struggling with the empty nest. These women that kind of had it together as these moms, and they were the, president of this and on the board of that. All
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden, the defining thing in their life just went away and they kind of fell apart. And I thought, what? I mean, believe me, I was sad and I grieved. It's a huge life change. 'Cause
Mm-hmm.
you think like you raise your kids so it's 18 years, but if you have multiple kids, we're talking 25 or 26
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
more. However, you were a woman before you were a mother.
Mm-hmm.
And you have lots to offer the world, and you need
Yeah.
to find your purpose. So the I just saw a lot of friends that were really floundering. And look, I was kind of floundering too, but I had a plan for kind of how I was going to find my purpose in the empty nest. And so I just kind of set about kind of executing that plan. And I don't know, honestly, I feel like God just gave me a heart to just speak into empty nesters and just
Mm-hmm.
maybe the courage just to say, I'm going to go through this and I'm just going to be brave enough that I'm actually just going to share it with you. And you can come along with me or you can laugh at me. That's up to you. But I talk about everything from fashion and beauty and lifestyle travel, cooking for two, parenting adult kids, marriage and
Right.
relationships, all of those things that are important in the life of an empty nester. I think we're complex as women, and I want Empty Nest Blessed to reflect that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think you do a great job of that. So
Thank
the
you.
meaning of an empty nest, is that something that's a term that you were familiar with it, or did it change, or have you kind of made your own meaning of it?
I was definitely, that's a great question. Because you'd think it's so simple and like everybody knows that, but the technical definition would be someone who had kids in the home and that now they don't. I think we think of the traditional, like they're going off to college.
Mm-hmm.
But very often you can have them kind of boomerang back. Like we had one go off to college and then he came back for a summer and studied for the LSAT. Then he
Yeah.
went to law school for 3 years and he came back
Yeah.
again
Well,
and
there's a lot
studied.
of boomeranging during COVID as well.
Yes, and we had that situation as well with a younger child. But again, that can ebb and flow. It can ebb and flow.
Mhm. Have you kind of recreated what that means to you to be from a
When
negative?
I thought of, that's a great question too. When I thought about starting Empty Nest Bless, I looked out there and I was like seeing like, are there any other blogs about the empty nest
Yeah.
that, I feel like 'cause I want to do something that everybody's done, but yet I kind of feel like I have something to share. So I really just found that there was no one really doing what I was going to do. And doing it with joy and seeking purpose and really learning and growing through the empty nest. So
Mhm.
that's what made me want to get started.
Yeah, your positivity and your perseverance, it really comes out in your website, your blog, and now talking live with you. So
Thank you.
contagious.
I want to be the same person when you see me as I am when you talk. There is honestly no way to sustain what I do without being authentic. It's just not sustainable if I'm not truly myself.
You talk about some of the other bloggers experiencing like an empty nest syndrome. Is that something that you also experience, but then you've chosen to, create positivity out of it?
If by empty nest syndrome, you mean the grief that's involved, the transition that's involved from a lifestyle change where your heart and your mind is on kids to giving yourself really permission and it feeling really awkward at first to just think about yourself and do what you want to do. And that's okay. That's a transition.
Yeah.
So when people talk about empty nest syndrome, it is a normal, natural process like aging, but people handle it different ways. And the people I worry about are the people that somehow think that it's normal to just like wallow in it. And they don't move forward because at some point you have to feel your feelings. You have to get through it. It is not overnight. It is not a light switch. It's probably done properly. It's over a period of, I would say, 3 to 6 months to do it healthy, to go through that grief and then kind of gradually come out the other side, kind of being excited about some of the freedoms of the empty nest, some of the wonderful things about it, and excited about finding purpose.
I think also something that helped me with that same transition, I have 3 grown children that are mostly out. I'll use that term loosely, is the fact that it's in their best interest to leave the nest.
It is normal. They have to differentiate as human beings. Their values, their faith, those have to become theirs. They're not yours anymore. And you're going to love some of their choices and you're going to go, I'm interesting about others of their choices. But it has to happen. It's the natural order of life.
Right. So that's those are all great points with what you're saying there. Is there something besides a brand new grandbaby, is there something that's just helped you transition to this, good, positive place in your life? I mean, I know there's always ups and downs in life and struggles, but things that have just helped you in being in an empty nest plus.
I think, first of all, it was not pressuring myself to get through that sad period and that transition quickly. I really enjoyed mothering my kids, and I enjoyed watching them grow. I enjoyed being involved in their lives and meeting their friends. And so what I realized was I wasn't just letting my kids go. I was letting that stage of my life go and saying goodbye to that phase. And so I really let myself sit in it and not, I just sort of observed how other people did it, but I didn't put pressure on for my journey to look like theirs. Instead, I just made my journey my own and really just used my timeline, but I was thoughtful and intentional about how I used that time.
Yeah, well, and just everything that you created as a result is testament to that for sure.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, there are definitely, you have to sit through that period of sadness. It's like any other grief process, and you have to sit with those feelings. And for some people, it involves counseling. It might involve medication. I don't know. It's different. It's a different journey for everyone.
There are pros and cons. So really defining both of those and acknowledging both of those. What are your favorites?
I would say the cons are that sometimes it's lonely. And at first it definitely felt quiet, but pretty soon that became a pro also.
Yeah.
And I realized like when I clean something up, it stays clean. When the bed stays made. And my husband developed this little motto about the empty nest. And he said, we can go where we want, when we want, for as long as we want. And we don't have to tell anybody. And that's a little bit of an exaggeration because at first we thought like, we're going to go to the midnight movie. And then we were like, oh, we are so tired. This is, but we were like, but we could if we wanted.
Let's just imagine we could.
Exactly.
Stay home.
Not being
Yeah.
tied to the school schedule
Mhm.
gave a lot of freedom. Whether it was in terms of travel, the most affordable times to travel are what they call shoulder season, which
Right.
is like that September, October, and that kind of April,
Mhm.
early May.
Yes.
And those are great times. It's cheap. There's no screaming people running around.
Yes.
It's great.
One of my favorite parts probably on your blog is about your parenting tips and for adult kids. I would love if you could share some of that by
Yeah,
people like me.
thank you. Well, I would say let's just start, but there's so much I could say, but I will
Mhm.
start by telling you the number one mistake that I think people make with adult children.
Yeah.
And really, this can start right when they leave for college. And that is that we take our emotional baggage and we put it on to them.
Hmm.
And that can start before they even leave for college, where you start saying things like, I miss you so much. I don't know what I'm going to do. What am I going to do without you? You're putting your emotions
Mhm.
on your children when they are going through a hugely significant time of transition in their own life. So
Mhm.
you have to be the grown up.
Yes.
You have to really die to yourself and make it all about them. That's how, and you know what? You take those feelings that you have, they're all legitimate,
Yes.
and you put them with a counselor. You talk to your spouse about them. You talk to your best friends. You journal them, whatever you
Mhm.
need to do right now, but you need to make it about them and finish strong as
Yeah.
a parent. Do not put your emotions on them. So I
Right.
think the biggest transition when it comes to parenting adult kids is to pursue them as friends. If
Mhm.
you've done a good job, they are probably people that you really kind of like. Now, you may
Yeah.
not love everything about them. Their choices are not your choices necessarily, but they're probably pretty likable. So I think you have to really pursue that friendship like you would pursue any other friendship. There is something to be said for the fact that when you have been with someone since they were born,
Mhm.
you know them pretty inside and out.
Yeah.
And really, I think your goal is that your kids would see how valuable that is. Like, this person knows me, knows my
Mhm.
weaknesses, my strengths, my tendencies, my skills, my,
Mhm.
all of that.
Mhm.
And so you want them to come to you for counsel. That would be a great goal. And you have to be a person that they would want to come to. And then you have to be very guarded in what you say. And you
Yeah,
have to
that's a
wait to be
really
invited.
fine line to balance, right? Yeah. Do you have what are your tips for that?
Well, I think you have to wait to be invited, but if they don't invite you, sometimes if I'm like, oh, I got a really good contribution here to this conversation, that it would be really helpful if I said this. I say things like, you know, I think you're doing a great job with this, but I kind of have a thought. Now, this is kind of based on how you were when you were growing up. Now, I don't have to give you this thought. You don't have to hear it, but I kind of have a thought. Would you like to hear it? You can say no. And then
Okay.
you wait. And guess what?
Give that option without
They
judgment.
never say no. No, they never say no. They're always like,
So instead of trying to share in that same experience, really just focus on that active listening.
yes, unless you can say something like, I remember this. So, for instance, with my little grandbaby that was born last week, she
Yeah.
right away was such a great little nurser. And I said, oh, well, my son that you're married to, Weston, was a great nurser too. He would just get in there and he was Mr.
Awesome.
Efficient. He was the best nurser of all my kids. And so that was related. So it was kind of okay. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yes.
And so anyway, so yeah,
What's your little grandbaby's name?
her name's Lily Ann.
Oh, such a pretty name.
Thank you.
Oh,
Think it is.
what a
too. I
beauty.
think it is too.
That you were talking about just these parenting tips with kids. So is there a point where you can set better boundaries so that you can have that stronger relationship with your kids?
Well,
That
I think
friendship.
obviously there can be situations where it's not healthy. There are situations with parents where they've had to say, okay, enough of this. You need to go, or this is not working. This is not healthy. And so that can happen. I would say Be sure if you've got, for instance, a boomerang situation or a child that just doesn't want to leave the nest, be sure you're not facilitating that by, providing all the laundry, providing all the meals, not charging rent, all those things. So you really use that common sense or ask somebody else that you trust kind of for their advice. But beyond that, I would say that more typically what I see, Mary, is the parents want more of a relationship and the
Right.
kids need to pull back a little bit. So you have to, just like I was saying about being a good friend, you have to honor and respect that.
Right.
But it's okay to put that into words. Like I've tried to be very intentional with my kids. And you know what I do? I tell them, I say, I'm really trying to honor your boundaries. And I think you're doing a great job. And so I'm just going to wait till text me and then I'll text you back, but I don't want to bug you. And you know what? You're used to seeing me as a mom who tells you when you didn't do something right or gives you instruction or gives you lots of advice. And you need to work on changing the way you see me as well. Because I very much want us to have an adult relationship and a friendship. And if you feel like you can come to me for advice and I can give it, that would be great. I'm going to come to you for advice too, because I think you have a lot to offer.
Yeah. So it's a two-way street of this new dynamic that you're creating.
It's a
I
two-way
love that
street.
of not, oh, I miss you so much. Oh, it's been so long since I've talked to you. And
and I think little things that you can do that are practical too, little tips would be things like if I'm driving around and I see somebody has like I don't know, like one of those vanity license plates that's kind of funny or that my child would think is funny, I might snap a picture and send it to them. I think in a lot of ways we stay in better touch with in tons of ways, we stay in better touch with our kids than our parents did with us because, it was the long distance and, it was what Sprint friends and family or whatever we'd call it. I'd be like, I have to call my mother. And I mean, I love my mother, but I'd be like, it's going to be an hour, 2-hour conversation. And I was just like, okay. And this generation, you can have these little touches,
little snippets.
Exactly. And
although
so that's
the
a real
Beyonce
blessing.
meme with the put a ring on it, that one didn't go over so well. So I'll try to take your advice. But
be careful of that one.
there's a too far in the memes, right?
Yes, you have to be careful and keep it light. And I think the more you can be, again, fun, funny, like a friend, just be like, what kind of person?
I thought it was funny. How about you have such great conversation starters for kids. I would love for you to, or adult children.
The biggest thing is to be very interested in them and then to participate in that active listening where you're not thinking about your next thing. You're not thinking about, common ground. You're instead just really engaging in what they're doing. You're going to ask follow-up questions. When your kids go off to college, they become experts. And I feel like I've been doing air quotes a lot. Sorry. They become experts in something. And, it's every parent laughs because if your, child takes like psychology 101, they'll like call you and tell you everything you did wrong. And I did that to my parents for sure.
Or even
and
if
then
they
I took
didn't.
Sociology 101, I did it again. So, but they will become, as they get into a field that's not your field, they'll become really experts and it will actually authentically, truly be very interesting to you. So to say things like, tell me about blah, 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 or what was your favorite class this year? Well, why? But if you're doing that active listening and really paying attention, you'll kind of see when they kind of light up as they're talking. And then that's where you want to pursue with your next question. Another really good question is to say like, okay, so take me through like what a typical day is like for you. Now, Mary, we did this around the dinner table.
With your adult kids?
Yes, when all the kids were home and it was fabulous. They got very into hearing each other's stories. At one point, like my oldest son got up, went over and hugged his sister. And he said, I had no idea your life was so challenging and you were dealing with all those things. Wow. I'm going to really pray for you. I didn't know that, And so for them to hear that about each other and for us to hear what a typical day is like was really so rich.
Yeah, I bet you all learn so much, and then the siblings about each other. That's such
so you can do it around the dinner table. You can do it one-on-one. You can easily do it one-on-one.
Love it. So I have a little bit of rapid fire for you. I hope you're okay with that.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay. Get ready.
Okay.
All right. Could you define your empty nest journey in 3 words?
Ooh, I would say purposeful, because I'm always seeking to have purpose and be intentional. Number 2, I would say joyful. I just am a person that chooses joy. Life is not perfect. I have struggles just like everybody else. I have an autoimmune disease. Currently, I have 2 broken ribs because I ran into a chair in our house. So
you'd never know it.
So joyful. I choose joy. I'm intentional about that. I'm grateful, and gratitude and joy are always intertwined. So, challenging, grateful, purposeful would be those 3. And the challenging is because I do think that challenging yourself adds purpose to your empty nest.
Well, I got a few more for you. 3 things you can't live without.
Oh my gosh, mascara.
Good one.
Mascara. I can't believe that was the first thing I said. It's so shallow. Mascara, my family, for sure. I love, my husband is fabulous. We've been married 35 years and he's just, I went into his phone and changed my name to say my hot wife a couple of weeks ago, and it's gone over really well. It's my marriage tip for you. My hot wife.
There's a tip for, yeah.
So, my hot wife. So my family, mascara, and I would say my Bible. I'm faith-based. And so very much that my spiritual walk with the Lord is a huge part of my life and is the anchor for everything I do, say, think, why I do what I do. So I definitely get that wisdom from being in the Word of God every day. So that would be my 3rd thing for sure.
Yeah, same. So you've given us so much good advice. What's the best advice that you've ever received?
I think it would be, that's a great question. I think it would be hard work trumps talent every time, because there will always be someone that does what you do better than you. And there will always be someone that does it worse than you. So I think just to remember, just to stay in your lane, and hard work trumps talent every time. There's a great book called Grit by Angela Duckworth, and she really looks at people who've been geniuses and been really successful. And her formula is hard work plus long-term perseverance is what really truly equals genius and success in business and life. And I love that.
Yeah, it's not a magic formula.
Yeah. Things just take longer than it seems like they will. So you have to long-term persevere.
One more for you. What are you most looking forward to in this stage of your life?
That is a fabulous question, Mary. I will tell you, the greatest thing is seeing your kids become adults. Just to see them become the people that God meant them to be in these different fields. I mean, I have one child who's an attorney, one who's a business analyst and knows everything, computer, amazing. And then I have a daughter that's a working musical theater actress. I mean, she's on a national tour right now. So that's the biggest thing, is I think watching them come into their own. And if you've done the work, I shouldn't call it work, but if you've nurtured those relationships when they first leave the nest and really tried to be thoughtful and purposeful and intentional about all the things we've talked about today, then they will invite you in. They will invite you into that process. It's a privilege. And I tell them, I just say thank you for the privilege of inviting us to share this with you. I'm getting kind of emotional talking about it, but it means so much to us. I mean, I said that to my son and daughter-in-law like 50 times over the last, week, as they've just invited us to be there when they brought the baby home for the first time and, things like that. And it's just, it's a privilege that they did not have to do. And I'm so grateful, truly.
Well, I mean, your past week, what an emotional and exciting time. So I can, makes me emotional just hearing it from you. But I know there's these little glimpses in all the trials and tribulations where just like these little everything is right in the world moments, I kind of call them. And, they usually revolve around your family and your loved ones. And they're really special times. So I can definitely, empathize with you with that. That's for sure. Suzy, thank you so much for all these great tips you've given us. Can you share where people can find you to learn more?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's just been so much fun to talk with you. I feel like if you were sitting beside me, we would just go shopping now or something.
I would love that.
My home base is emptynestblessed.com. That's where you can find resources. A lot of the tips we've shared today. Again, I talk about fashion, beauty, travel, cooking for two, wellness, health, all of the things, and parenting adult kids, marriage, all those things that are important in the lives of empty nesters. You can also find me on all the places, social media. I'm just at Empty Nest Blessed on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest. And so come find me and let's just journey through this together.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.